If you think you know what Hollywood tragedy looks like, pause, because this one hits like a door slamming in a quiet house. A legendary filmmaker, a life built in public, a home in one of LA's most exclusive neighborhoods. And then, on a Sunday afternoon, first responders arrive, and what they find becomes a homicide investigation that sends a shockwave through the industry. What's up, everyone? Welcome to True Crime Animator Studio. I'm Tim B. On this channel, we tell real cases with respect, clarity, and receipts. No gore, no rumor as fact, and no pretending we know what investigators haven't confirmed. Today, we're covering what is known right now about the deaths of director and producer Rob Reiner and his wife, Michelle Singer Reiner, found dead inside their Brentwood home, and the arrest of their son, Nick Reiner, on suspicion of murder. And I need to say this up front. This case is active. That means a lot of questions are still unanswered. Where the record is unclear, I'll tell you plainly what is confirmed and what is being reported while investigators and prosecutors do their work. Now, let's walk it from the beginning. Sunday, December 14th, 2025. Brentwood, Los Angeles. Late afternoon, police have said detectives responded to the home around 3:40 p.m. after Los Angeles Fire Department personnel were called to the property and found 2 people dead. After the initial investigation, LAPD determined the deaths were a homicide, and the case was assigned to the Robbery Homicide Division, an elite unit used when a case is high stakes, high profile, and evidence heavy. The victims were later identified in reporting and family statements as Rob Reiner, 78, and Michelle Singer Reiner, 68. Multiple major outlets reported that their youngest daughter, Romy Reiner, discovered them and called 911. That detail matters because it's not the kind of thing you can say lightly. I'm not presenting it as courtroom fact, only as widely reported by established news organizations citing law enforcement sources. Investigators have not publicly released a full narrative of this scene. What has been reported by sources across several outlets is that both victims had injuries consistent with stabbing. That single word, consistent, is doing a lot of work. It tells us what authorities believe they're dealing with, but it also tells us the public record is being protected while detectives build a case they can prove in court. And then the next turn happens fast. Within hours of the bodies being discovered, the couple's son, Nick Reiner, 32 years old, was taken into custody and booked on suspicion of murder. Several outlets noted early confusion about bail, some reporting referenced a $4 million bail figure, while later reporting said he was being held without bail. What is consistent across reputable sources is this: Nick Reiner was arrested, he remains in custody, and prosecutors are weighing charging decisions. So the question becomes, who were the victims and why is this hitting people so hard? Rob Reiner wasn't just a producer, he's a cultural fixture. Many people first knew him as Meathead on All in the Family, and then watched him become one of the defining directors of modern American film. The Princess Bride, Stand By Me, When Harry Met Sally, Misery, A Few Good Men. These are titles that live in the background of our lives as quotes, scenes, and characters we all recognize, even if we don't always remember the credits. Michelle Singer Reiner built her own creative footprint. She was a photographer and producer, and she and Rob were known for years of advocacy, including work tied to marriage equality and LGBTQ+ rights. The Associated Press reported she met Rob while working as a photographer on the set of When Harry Met Sally, and friends have described Michelle as someone whose presence and values shaped the way their partnership moved through Hollywood and public life. Rob and Michelle married in 1989 and had 3 children together, and Rob also adopted Tracy Reiner from Michelle's previous marriage to Penny Marshall. Those are the family ties now standing in the center of this storm. And there's another detail that adds a painful layer. Rob and Nick Reiner had worked together publicly. Rob directed the 2015 film Being Charlie, which Nick co-wrote, and which drew from Nick's own history of addiction and instability. That doesn't explain what happened in 2025, but it shows a father and son whose relationship at times was lived in public view. Now, what do investigators believe happened in the hours before the deaths? Here's what is reported, and I'm going to keep the language careful. The Los Angeles Times and ABC reporting describe an argument between Rob and Nick at a holiday party on Saturday night, December 13th, at comedian Conan O'Brien's home. Friends told reporters that people noticed Nick acting strangely at the party. That is witness description, not a diagnosis, and it is not a motive. But it is part of what has been reported as potentially relevant context. ABC reporting also said investigators have been interviewing the Reiners' immediate family members as they try to understand Nick Reiner's relationships and standing within our family. That is a standard step in a case like this, but it underscores how much of the story is still being pieced together behind the scenes. By Sunday afternoon, the story changes from party whispers to sirens, crime scene tape, and the kind of quiet you only see when a neighborhood realizes something irreversible has happened. In the first hours, LAPD's public comments were limited. That's normal. In homicide work, details are currency. If detectives put too much on the street too early, they risk contaminating witness accounts and losing the ability to verify who truly knows what happened. At one early briefing, officials described it as a death investigation and declined to confirm many specifics on camera. Then came the arrest, and here's what stands out. Reporting said detectives worked throughout the night, and the case moved with unusual speed from an emergency call to an apparent double homicide to an arrest within hours. That speed doesn't prove guilt, but it suggests investigators believe they have specific evidence they can test in court in the days ahead. So what do we actually know right now without stepping 1 inch into speculation? We know 2 people were found dead inside the Reiners' Brentwood home on December 14th, and LAPD determined it was a homicide. We know robbery homicide is investigating. We know Nick Reiner was arrested and booked on suspicion of murder. We know that, as of the latest reporting, prosecutors had not publicly laid out a motive or a full evidence narrative, and we're still moving toward formal charging decisions and court proceedings. We also know what we do not know. We do not have publicly an official motive. We do not have publicly an explanation of the evidence that led to the arrest beyond the fact that detectives worked the scene and moved quickly. We do not have publicly details about a weapon, the sequence of events inside the home, or what, if anything, was said in those final moments. If you see anyone online claiming they know exactly what happened, treat it as entertainment, not information. And the online environment around this case has already gotten noisy. Major outlets have noted political commentary and opportunistic attacks spilling into coverage. That kind of noise is exactly how people lose sight of the reality. 2 lives ended, a family shattered, and a case that will now move through a justice system that demands evidence, procedure, and time. A family statement released through the media asked for privacy and expressed heartbreak. Leaders in Los Angeles and California issued condolences, describing the loss as devastating and highlighting the couple's cultural impact and advocacy. From Hollywood to public life, people reacted not only because Rob Reiner was famous, but because his work was personal to viewers, and because Michelle Singer Reiner was remembered as someone who used her platform for causes she believed in. So where does it go from here? In a case like this, the next milestones are predictable, even when the facts are not. Prosecutors decide whether to file charges, what charges fit the evidence, and what to disclose at an initial court appearance. The defense begins its work immediately. The court calendar starts to move, and the public narrative, if we're not careful, starts to outrun the truth. Here at True Crime Animator Studio, we don't chase that. We chase confirmed timelines, official filings, and verifiable reporting. So if you're watching this and you want the most important takeaway, it's this: an arrest is not a conviction. The allegations are severe and the moment is emotional, but the legal process exists for a reason. Let investigators investigate. Let prosecutors show their evidence in court. And let a jury, not the comment section, decide guilt. Before I go, I want to leave you with the human side, because it's easy to turn headlines into content and forget the cost. A husband and wife, known publicly for decades, are gone. Their children are left to live inside a nightmare that the world is dissecting in real time. And an accused son sits in custody while the state decides what comes next. That's not a movie, that's not a script twist. That's a real family with a real ending we didn't want. I'm Tim B, and this has been True Crime Animator Studio. If you want the follow-up, the moment formal charges are filed, or if new verified details emerge like court documents, an arraignment date, or official statements, make sure you're subscribed, because we will update this story with facts only, and we'll do it with respect. Until next time, take care of yourselves, look out for the people you love, and remember, the truth is slow, but it matters. References used for verification, not part of spoken script. CBS News reporting on the homicide investigation, custody status, and bail confusion. ABC reporting on the reported argument context and investigative steps. Los Angeles Times reporting on the holiday party argument detail and overnight investigative work. Associated Press reporting on Michelle Singer-Reiner's background and advocacy, reporting that prosecutors were still deciding charging actions as of the 16th of December 2025. People.com, background reporting on the family.